Hello, and welcome to Mastering Mixing. I'm your host, Tegan Bate, from Kunta Wu's lab at Worcester Polytechnic Institute. Today, you're going to learn how mixing works and how to do it efficiently. When we learn about the physics of the world around us, we can apply that knowledge to make our everyday life more efficient, more satisfying, and more enjoyable. Do you know the ways that things can mix? Well, one of the ways is by the process of diffusion. The world around us is made up of tiny, tiny atoms and molecules. Temperature is a measure of how much these molecules and atoms are jiggling. When they jiggle, molecules in a fluid move around through the fluid. This is called Brownian motion. Diffusion is the mixing of a fluid's molecules by Brownian motion. When you steep a tea bag, this is how the tea mixes without you touching it. And when you pour milk in, even if you don't stir it, it still mixes by diffusion over time. Now, other than increasing the temperature, we have no way of affecting the type of mixing called diffusion. Another type of mixing that we can affect is the active process of stretching and folding. This is how a baker kneads his dough, and it's even how kitchen mixing machines mix dough. To understand the physics of this mixing, we will break it down into its parts. You can try this activity yourself at home so that you can master mixing. We start by adding 2.5 cups or 300 grams of all-purpose flour to a large mixing bowl. Next comes a half cup of fine salt. Then we add 1 tablespoon of cream of tartar. Now we can briefly stir together our dry ingredients. Finally, we add 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil. Here I'm using canola oil, but coconut oil, baby oil, or any other oil will work. Now, we again briefly mix our dry ingredients in with our oil. Now, we add 2 cups or 473 grams of boiling water. Next, we can stir it with a spoon until it's fully incorporated, but not smooth. Now, we let it rest until it's cool enough to handle and knead, about 20 or 30 minutes. Once it's cool enough to handle, we can turn it out onto our work surface and begin to knead it until it's smooth, about 8 minutes. Now, we can split it into as many sections as we have food coloring. Now, we're ready to add our different food colorings. Here, I have red, yellow, green, and blue. I'm going to tap a small indent into each ball and add a squirt of food coloring to each. Once the food coloring is added, we can carefully knead the dough thoroughly until the color is mixed. Each time that I switch between a ball of color that I'm mixing, I go over to the sink and rinse my hands off in water so that I do not contaminate the color between the balls. Once we've finished mixing the balls, we are ready to start our experiment. Remember that earlier I described the process of active mixing as a process of repeated stretching and folding. So we'll take 2 of the colored balls, place them together, and then start by stretching them, followed by folding them. Then we repeat the process over and over again until we find that the colors are thoroughly mixed together. Now, if you have a second set of colors, you can repeat the process. Great job! You've completed the initial experiment of how we mix. Now, here are a few things that you can try. Number 1, can you think of a different way to mix other than stretching and folding? If so, are you sure that your new method, if you break down its motion, is not still essentially stretching and folding? Number 2, see how efficiently you can mix the dough and compare your methods. You can do this by timing how long it takes you to mix and estimate how much effort it took. The less time and energy something takes, the more efficient it is. If you take data and write it down, then you can be sure which way is best. This is how science works. We ask a question and answer it by taking data. Data are measurements that we record. Ideally, scientific data is completely objective and quantitative. Objective means the data is independent of your judgment. We may not agree if a song is good, but we can usually agree if something is 4 or 5 inches or is green or orange. Quantitative means the measurement is recorded as a number, which is advantageous to scientists as numbers are very specific. With this experiment, it is difficult to ascertain exactly when the dough is mixed and how much effort it takes to do the mixing. This is a challenge of precision for your experiment. Can you establish a concrete definition for when your 2 colors of dough are completely mixed? How do you measure it? Now, you can apply science to mixing and master it. In conclusion, learning about the physics surrounding our everyday lives can enable us to creatively evolve how we live them in a practical way. Mixing is one of the processes constantly occurring around us, and that we also need to do intentionally for activities like baking. Active mixing is a process of repeated stretching and folding. Knowing this, we can creatively experiment with new and better ways to get our mixing done. My name is Tegan Bate, and I have enjoyed being your Mastering Mixing host. Check out the Woo Lab website and YouTube channel to find out more about what we do. Happy mixing!